All right, let's talk about ATP a little bit. And some of this is review. Adenosine triphosphate. It's the best known nucleotide we have. It's made up of, again, MUO is made up of a base, a sugar, and some sort of phosphate. In this case, we have 3 phosphates, thus the name triphosphate. The base that we're talking about is adenine, and the sugar is ribose. This is the body's most important energy transfer molecule. Okay? Releases energy within seconds to do some sort of work. We got to talk about how to make this ATP. It holds energy in covalent bonds, specifically where the phosphates are. When you break off one phosphate, it releases a ton of energy. When you break off the second phosphate, it releases a ton of energy. ATP is stored energy. So simply the structure here. Here you got the adenine, the base. Here you have the sugar, the ribose, and then you're going to have the triphosphate, 3 phosphate groups. When we break up this, and that phosphate comes off, it releases a ton of energy. When this one, now that ATP becomes ADP. Why did we change the name? Because ATP is adenosine triphosphate. There's 1, 2, 3 phosphates there. Adenosine diphosphate, di meaning 2. This one already came off, and you got 2. When this one comes off, now it's AMP, and that's adenosine monophosphate, means that there's only going to be 1 phosphate there. The names help you to figure out what's going on there. When this comes off, this structure now is called ADP, D, adenosine diphosphate. This phosphate that came off is referred to as inorganic phosphate. Right? So you have adenosine triphosphate, 1, 2, 3 phosphates on here. We add water to this, the phosphate comes off as inorganic phosphate. And now this is referred to as ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, because there's 2 phosphates there. This still is storing energy because we can break another one here. But the energy that comes out of there is a lot. Okay? So we have cellular work. Cells do work 3 different ways. We could do chemical work. And when I say work, that means energy needs to go in it. Where's the energy coming from? ATP. So that's why we got to talk about where ATP is coming from. So it can do chemical work. Push and reaction to occur spontaneously. Making a polymer, a chain, like pearls on a necklace, break them all up so that you can take the pearls off. That's chemical work. Basically, that's catabolism, right? Transport work, pumping of substances across a membrane against its gradient. Active transport, right? We're going to go from a low concentration to a high concentration. That is not natural, it's not spontaneous. We have to put work in it, and that's where we have the so-called ATPase pump, where 3 sodium go out and 2 potassium go in, right? Na 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 na, hey, right? That, right? We went back to that. We could also do mechanical work. Physically move something. We talked about the flagellum or the cilia. They actually are moving. In order to do that, you need ATP to do all this. Energy. So, using ATP to do work. As I told you before, we have to do this coupling, this energy coupling. We're going to use an exergonic reaction to drive an endogonic reaction. We're going to have an exogonic reaction, release energy. We're going to use that energy to put into an endogonic reaction. So breaking off a phosphate group by way of hydrolysis from an ATP will change the delta G. So we have ATP and water. That will break up the ATP into ADP plus inorganic phosphate. Energy gets released. We could use that energy to do those works that I just showed you on the slide before. The delta G with this is negative 7.3. Of the phosphate, of that phosphate bond, but it's from altering the of the chemical system that lowered the free energy. The free energy is what we're going to be using to do work. So it's important to know that we have to put that inorganic phosphate back onto the ADP to make ATP, and we got to know about how to take it off the ATP so that it releases energy. So we have two types of enzymes. And again, this is a review for you guys. Adenosine triphosphatase, or ATPases, they're the ones that are going to break that phosphate group off the ATP. And it's going to release a whopping amount of energy. We also have phosphorylation, which is the opposite. We need to make ATP, so we're going to put the inorganic phosphate back onto the molecule in that case, the ADP. So we have enzymes do that. They're called kinases, or some people call them phosphokinases. Again, if they end with ASE, it's an enzyme, right? But in order to do this, energy must be put into it. If we're going to build something, we have to put energy into it. So that's an endogonic reaction. We have to put energy into it. So energy is transferred. Most organisms are powered by catabolism of glucose, breaking up that glucose. So the energy in glucose cannot be used directly. It must be transferred to the so-called energy-carrying molecules, which we'll talk about tomorrow mainly. But I'll introduce you a little bit of it in a moment. So these energy-carrying molecules, they're high-energy molecules. They're made at the site of where the exogonic reaction occurs. We're the place where energy gets released. And then they're captured some of those released energies. This only occurs within the cell, not outside the cell. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what happens in the cytoplasm. We're going to talk about what happens in the mitochondria. So these molecules cannot carry energy through the cell membrane. It stays within the cell. So every cell needs to make energy. It's not used for long-term energy storage. Like I said, for you to make one round of ATP, your whole body, it's only good for 1 minute. And then you die. So you have to make a constant supply of ATP when you're sleeping, studying, and all that kind of stuff. So these energy-carrying molecules is ATP, of course. There's also something called NADH and FADH2. We're going to introduce you all of these mainly tomorrow. So energy is transferred to electrons. And these energetic electrons, along with a hydrogen proton, a hydrogen ion there, they're captured by these ATP, NADH, and FADH2s. So these are electron carriers. So namely, it's NADH that does this and FADH2. All right? They're going to donate high energy electrons to other molecules. And these other molecules are going to be used to make ATP, which is what you want. You can't use NADH directly as energy. ATP you can. So this has to be converted to ATP so that we can use it. But this can make 3 ATP and this can make 2 ATP. So they're great. They're great for making ATP. But it uses the energy coupling that I talked about. You have to do an exergonic reaction, release the energy, and use that energy to build these things. So just showing an action of a coenzyme. We get from glucose to pyruvic acid, all right, there's something called glycolysis, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But we're going to be taking an electron over here, and we can put it onto an NAD over here to transfer onto another reaction. This is going to release energy, and we're going to use this energy to make energy over here. We're going to be able to make this ADP with an inorganic phosphate become ATP because of this exergonic reaction put into an endogonic reaction to make energy. Energy coupling reactions. Okay? And this is kind of showing the same thing. All right? Just a little bit more detail, but you'll look at it when we go into it tomorrow.